We are in day 164 in 1 Kings 11. And let me just say, when the first verse in this chapter starts off with, "And Solomon loved many foreign women," you know, as my mother would say, there is trouble right here in River City. Because God was very specific, saying, do not intermarry, do not even mingle with foreign women, because they will lead you astray. And that's exactly what happened. Here is the wisest man in the world. When God says, ask anything of me, and he asks for wisdom. So here's the wisest man in the world, and yet he let foreign women take his heart away from the one true God and worship pagan gods. Mind-boggling to me, absolutely mind-boggling. And you think of his father David, who never turned his heart away from God. Didn't mean he didn't fail. He failed in big ways, but he never turned his heart towards foreign gods. And he is the very one that fought all the battles, the surrounding pagan countries, civilizations that he had to fight against. And yet God gave Solomon such favor and said, you will have peace because you've asked for wisdom, how to rule my people. And because of that, I'm going to bless you with everything. So during his lifetime, he had peace because his father David did all the dirty work. And maybe that's what got him in trouble. Life was just too easy for him. And we all know when life's too easy, we can all get in trouble. So let's read some of this. So like I said, it starts off with, now King Solomon loved many foreign women. Pharaoh's daughter, women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, it goes on and on. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, you must not marry them, because they will turn your hearts to their gods. Hello. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. Are you ready for this one? He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. Now let's just do the math here. If he had 1,000 women, even if he had sex every day, those women would only see him maybe once every 3 years. And I'm sure he had his favorites, let's be honest. So I don't know about you all, but that just sounds extremely exhausting to me. But that's what happened with Solomon. And in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. In Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God, as his father David had been. In this way, Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight, and he refused to follow the Lord completely as his father David had done. The Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Remember, he came to him in dreams. He had warned Solomon specifically about worshiping other gods, but Solomon did not listen to the Lord's commands. So the Lord said to him, since you have not kept my covenant and have disobeyed my decrees, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you. Well, I think it's really interesting because after that, it says God literally raised enemies against him. David had defeated the Edomites, completely defeated them, except for a few people that had run away, one of them being the king's son. Hadad is his name. He ran to Egypt, ended up marrying Pharaoh's sister's wife, so he had power, was raised in luxury. And as soon as he heard that David and Joab had been killed, or had died, I should say, then he was out to take revenge. And he was going to come back and be a thorn in King Solomon's side and for the Israelites, along with other enemies, like Rezin was another one. So Jeroboam, who was a young man that was very industrious and Solomon had elevated him into great power in the kingdom. He was walking along, and a prophet came to him and took his cloak and tore it in 10 pieces. And he said, this is what is going to happen in King Solomon's kingdom. Now remember, there were 12 tribes of Israel. So the 10 represented Israel. The other 2 were Judah and Benjamin, the tribes of Judah and the tribes of Benjamin. So he said, I will always keep one of your heirs in the tribe of Judah, but Israel would be completely split up into 10 different pieces. So God allowed the kingdom to be completely broken up because of his disobedience. And it just shows you, if we follow the Lord, then he will bless us and take care of us. If we don't, he's going to allow enemies to infiltrate and take over. And that applies to us too. So then Solomon's son Rehoboam had taken over, and this is a perfect example of listening to bad counsel. So he had older men, and there's something about wisdom when you're older because you've lived a longer life and you happen to know how life works and how people work. And the people came to Rehoboam when he became king, and they said, your father was such a tough taskmaster, and he put heavy taxes on us, and he made our lives really difficult. And the older council said, go to the people and tell them, I'm on your side, we're going to work on this together. But then Rehoboam also sought younger men, his friends, and they gave him very harsh counsel. They said, you go out and tell those people in your kingdom that there's going to be more persecution in their pinkies than there was when your father Solomon was alive in their entire bodies. Well, that did not go well. And because of listening to bad counsel, Rehoboam went against God. He was evil, even more evil than Solomon, and worshiped false gods. And because of that, the kingdom was taken away. And it's so fascinating how God sent prophets to show him the power of God, because he raised his arm up, and when the prophet was there, his arm froze in place. And he said, please pray to God and ask him to unfreeze it. And his arm was unfrozen, but yet he still never turned back to God's ways. And because of that, God was very angered and he was taken out. We are in Acts 9, and there is, I believe, no other great conversion better than Saul, who became Paul. Because Saul was a terrible persecutor of the believers, called the Way. That's when the Christians were called the Way, meaning the way was Jesus, his way, that narrow path. And he even went to the leaders of Damascus. How can we bring all these people in, men, women, children, and persecute them and destroy them? He was literally out to destroy the people who believed in the Way, even being responsible for Stephen's stoning to death, and actually held the cloaks of the people stoning him as he watched as Stephen was killed. So this is the greatest conversion ever. Let's read. As Saul was approaching Damascus on this mission to try to destroy the believers, a light from heaven suddenly shone down around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting my people? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. The voice replied, I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Saul picked himself up off the ground, because it literally, the power of God knocked him off of his chariot. But when he opened his eyes, he was blind. So his companions led him by the hand to Damascus. He remained there blind for 3 days and did not eat or drink. Now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. And I'll tell you what, I want to hear from God as clearly as Ananias did, because he got specific instructions from the Lord to tell him exactly how to deal with Paul. How cool is this? I mean, in very directional ways. And the Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he replied. The Lord said, go over to State Street. Don't you love that? God even told him what street to go to and guided him so specifically. I love that. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He is praying to me right now. I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias coming in and laying hands on him so he could see again. So not only did Jesus speak to Ananias, but he was also speaking to Saul about exactly what was going to happen. This man Ananias was going to come to you. He's going to lay hands on you, and all of a sudden you aren't going to be blind anymore and you're going to receive your sight. How incredible is this? But the Lord said, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument. He was like, God, I can't go to him. He's the very one who's killing Christians and persecuting them. And God said, go. Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to kings as well, and to the people of Israel. And I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. And I think it's so interesting because when Saul was a Pharisee, he was a zealot, and he was such a zealot that he believed so strongly that he thought he was on the right path and he was willing to kill people. That's what a zealot he was. Then Jesus made him a zealot for him. He became a zealot for Christ, literally wrote 1/3 of the New Testament, and literally changed history. One man who used to persecute believers, God knocked him off his chariot, and I'll tell you why. God doesn't see us where we are at right now in our lives. He sees us as who we will become. And that's where I want to say, choose me, God, choose me. I'll go. He sees our heart, and he saw that Saul was such a zealot that he knew that Saul, to become Paul, would become a zealot for the gospel, for the sake of Christ. How cool is that? And it says here that Paul he regained his sight and was immediately filled with the Holy Spirit. That power came upon him. And it says Saul stayed with the believers in Damascus for a few days, and immediately he began preaching about Jesus in the synagogue, saying, he is indeed the Son of God. How amazing is that? Now, love this. Saul's preaching became more and more powerful, and the Jews in Damascus couldn't refute his proofs that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. Look how Jesus chose him. So all of us, he wants to call every single one of us. We just have to say yes. We are in Psalm 131, and I love this one because it basically tells us what to do about not worrying, because worry does not change one incident. It doesn't change any circumstance. It doesn't change any situation. All it does, it gets us so worked up that instead of faith and instead of giving it to the Lord and praying, we worry. And when we can't change anything. But if we just sought the Lord and prayed to him, then he will move on our behalf. And I think I've said this before. It says in the Bible 365 times, do not fear. There's one for every day. And worry and stress and fear does not change one circumstance in our lives. Instead, we need to lay it on the altar of Jesus. Say, God, there's nothing I can do about this. I can't change the situation, but you can. And I'm giving this to you. And I thank you that I will not worry, but from this day forward, I'm going to seek you, and I believe that you will sovereignly guide me in every direction that I should go. And that's basically what this psalm is saying. And again, it's Psalm 131, and it says, Lord, my heart is not proud, my eyes are not haughty. I don't concern myself with matters too great or too awesome for me to grasp. Instead, I have calmed and quieted myself like a weaned child who no longer cries for its mother's milk. Yes, like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord now and always. Isn't that beautiful? We need to put all of our hope in the Lord, and I promise you, he will come to our behalf. He promises us in this word right here. He promises us he will never leave us or forsake us. And that is the greatest promise in the world. And then Proverbs 17, 4 through 5 says, wrongdoers eagerly listen to gossip. Liars pay close attention to slander. Those who mock the poor insult their maker. And the maker is in capital M. That maker is God, the creator of the universe. So it says those who mock the poor insult their maker. Those who rejoice at the misfortune of others will be punished.